Steve, if you would open with prayer, I appreciate that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, we ask that you help us today as we deliberate the business of the county and the residents. Lord, help us, Lord, to keep in mind your will for us and just help us, Lord, to act in ways that are pleasing to you. I ask all these things, Lord, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Steve. All right. Have you gentlemen had a chance to look at the minutes from July 25th, 2023?
Yes, I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes.
Second.
All right. Shortest meeting in recorded history?
No.
There we go. I'll bring it right back. All right, Tony, what do you have for us today?
1 second here. Okay. You pass that down to Steve first. Okay, first I have payroll claims in the amount of $365,955.69. $365,955.69.
Right. All right, take a motion to
I'll make a
approve.
motion.
Second. Okay, Tony, were you able to figure out how to add that little bit of information that the State Board of Accounts has asked us to look at periodically?
I'm trying to think which one you're talking about.
Well, we're talking about the approval of payroll for those individuals that the commissioners need to approve.
Yes, we are, that actually doesn't have to start immediately, so we're working on how to facilitate that and make that.
Okay.
But since
I'm kind of hoping this can just be a part of this process.
I think
but-
it can.
Okay.
I think it can, because while you're approving this payroll, you're also approving those.
We really are. I agree with that. If they could just be highlighted in some way or a separate
Right.
listing
Well,
or
we had
something.
vacation this time, so.
Yep,
it's
got
kinda
it,
Last minute,
Got
so
it. Nope.
I didn't, but others did. So we will try to get that done for the next payroll and highlight the ones, the department heads that you all appoint.
In due time. I'm not concerned about it because I really do feel we approve them when we approve this
I agree.
payroll.
I think that's something you're already doing,
I do too.
you know. The other thing that I have here is the Allied weekly health insurance claims. That is all medical. It's in the amount of $37,685.11. Yeah, $37,685.11. You will need to sign that one.
All right, any questions on that?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Right.
Okay, and I've handed out to you all the current balance in the health insurance accounts prior to this being approved. So if you look at the checking, I had asked Ed and Kathy to move over some last week. So we have 364,238 prior to this approval, so we should be good in the checking for a while. We keep it in the savings, obviously, until such a time that we need to get some out to pay these bills, so. And I passed that out to you all, didn't I?
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, then we have the accounts payable claims. And those got to you just a little late. I explained we were waiting on one claim to be corrected by a department, and we literally just got that like 15 minutes ago. So the amount of the claims payable are $496,738.16, $496,738.16. If you have questions on those, you'll have to pass that over so I can see it, because I don't actually have those on me. I gave them all to you.
That Blue Energy equipment, was that for the berming?
No, that's the finish, painting off everything for the new fuel tanks.
Gotcha.
That's the final payment, you say?
Yes, everything after this last claim cycle should be paid.
All right, I'd accept the motion to approve those claims as presented,
I'll make a motion to approve.
unless you have any other questions.
I'll second.
All right, motion carried.
Okay, that is all I officially have. I know the treasurer has a conference to get to here later, so I wanted to bring up, you all were in the exit conference for State Board of Accounts. They were here for, what, 2 months, 3 months? Seems like a year. They now have posted their reports. You all were in the meeting, and I felt like it was a pretty good report. I don't think, really, one of the things they brought up is something that the law just changed on advance payments. So even what they had said is no longer accurate. So I wanted to say that while Ed is still here, because he was part of that state board thing as well. So I wanted to bring that up prior to his leaving for that conference.
Ed, any questions or comments on that?
It's kind of nice not having to go to that exit conference. They actually came and said, treasurer's office is in good shape. We don't need to talk to you about anything, so.
Good.
And,
Well, let me clarify that. They didn't actually have to talk to me about anything either.
Yeah.
As auditor, I was required to be there to sign everything,
It was
so
nice that I didn't have to go.
just a point of
All right.
clarification.
Got that all written down, Harry, between those guys. Right hand, they go.
All right.
But it went smoothly, and there were no audit exceptions, and that was for the last 2 years plus a federal audit. So I appreciated the folks, you all and the council members that actually attended it, and thought it went very well.
Good. Not that we didn't like them, but we're glad to have them out of here.
Amen.
All right. Very good. Thank you for that information. Brad, if you'd like to come up.
Good morning.
Brad.
Handouts.
Thank you.
Special day for you there, Eric.
The big one.
Yeah.
We kind of rushed you out of here last week.
That's all right. Record-setting meeting. Can I give you that one?
Yep.
All right. So this is the monthly draw for July. Just so we know, make sure which month it is. So for the month of July, for the MVH fund, our draw was $306,072.07. $306,072.07. And on the backside, the local road and street, our monthly draw for July, $47,127.70. $47,127.70.
Had a whole lot of change there.
Now, like we've discussed before, it's interesting when you look back from other years and the months increase some and when people are driving more.
Yeah. All right. Any questions or comments on that?
I'll make a motion, we put this in record.
Second.
All right. Thank you, Brad.
Yep, I have one permit today, and it is for Cooley Contracting. They're doing work for the town of Monroe. It is on County Road 000.
between 100 South and State Road 124. So Monroe's sewer lines are up to burn, and there's been some issues. I'm not quite sure what, but they would need to put in air vaults to release air out of the line. So they're actually going to be working in the right of way to install one of these vaults. So it's just one of those.
Right on the edge almost, don't they, of the road?
This one here will actually be off the edge of the road, but they're gonna have another one. They actually had to get a road cut permit. So, yeah, it's those big bolts they put on them, they're gonna have to release stuff in them. Something that their engineers, they need to do to try and help the situation.
Motion approved.
Okay, motion carried.
Where's Cooley from?
Winchester?
Winchester. Okay.
So,
All the time.
why, that wasn't stable today, so that's easy to sign. And why that's being signed, I'll just let you know that at the beginning of every year in our yearly bids, we have crack sealing bid out. And so we actually have, they're gonna be starting crack sealing for us. And it's gonna be Salem Road from 124 to 700 South. And then 1100 South, Old 116 from the Geneva city limits to the state line. So they go in and seal all the cracks like you've been seeing around town. It's the same company. And so we have quite a bit we're gonna have done. And then typically what we do is within a year or two, we try and chip seal those roads so the cracks are sealed. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up because we'll be seeing a claim come through sometime for Pavement Solutions. And then, as of yesterday, we had finished 30 miles of chip and seal. And once we got going, weather's been beautiful. See the guys out and about.
So
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks to them.
Yeah, last week was a little warm, but the guys did it, and it went well. That's it.
Of those 30 miles, how much of those was in the south end of the county?
They just jumped north. It's about 25 miles south. And we're gonna have roughly 40, almost 40 miles north. It's like we're doing Pickle Road, so that's a big one. You know, that there will.
Down south, are you doing anything different with the troughs, the buggy troughs in the road as
We
far as
tried,
harder stone or anything? Or?
there's, the harder stone is not around here. They've tested the stone, they've showed us a test from where we do get our stone, and they say they're just as hard as other quarries. And then the cost of trucking it from a distance. So no, what we did try, though, there was a mile of road down there this year. Years past, they would go in and do just the buggy trough, and then they come back over and the chip seal over it, a few weeks later. Years in the past, they said, what happens though, you've got oil down there in that buggy trough, put stone in, then you come back over with another layer of oil and stone, you get a lot of oil setting right in that trough. So they tried it again this year though. We tried a mile, see what happens. Maybe we can build that up a little bit, see if it bleeds through bad like it has in the past or not.
Yeah.
So we're trying to see what happens.
Well, I know that's been a challenge always, and it probably will continue to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I appreciate you trying something.
And yeah,
Something
whenever
like that.
we're done with chip and seal, we're gonna send them back out. They'll do buggy troughs and they'll do more patching and that kind of stuff. We'll keep hitting them.
Yeah.
So the last thing I have is, met with the change management committee, and upon Ethan's, Bob's recommendations and Mike's, we would like to get 2 new desktops and 2 monitors for in our office. One of the monitors is for it goes along with our radio system, and then it has a GPS, so we know where every piece of equipment is, wherever they're at. And that's very handy because there are some places there's not cell service. So if we can't get to them or something would happen, at least we know where the stuff's at. So it's kind of a safety thing. And that computer, what I have researched, was given to us when Mark Mitchell was still here. So that's at least 10 years ago. And then it was a spare at the time that they gave to us to use for that. So that's that one. And then the other one is what we use to sell buggy plates. And Ethan, it came down, and that was purchased in 2017. And the buggy plate cells is a pretty critical part of what we do. So I'm requesting that, and then when Bobbin came down, the UPS backups are they're older, and their run life, I guess, if power went out is limited at this point, so he recommended getting them replaced. And then talking with Mike, he said now would be the time to upgrade them, better security. Now, I don't understand all that, Mike does.
Well, part of the thing, as I understood it, that computer runs the fuel system too.
That's how we monitor the fuel system.
Monitor the fuel system, so that's
Yes.
a pretty important part too.
Yes. So Mike would like to have Gene Blakey come down and look at that so they can figure out what all we need for the UPS side of it. And so I'm approaching you guys today to, get your permission to go ahead with this stuff. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. Not knowing exactly what we need for the UPS stuff, it's kind of hard to get a figure on. But you remember what the amount that should cover everything by chance?
Doesn't have to be everything, but at least should be those pieces of equipment that we need to power when we have a power outage. Okay, so they have a UPS down there, but it's only rated only for the network switch itself. So the network switch would be available to be used, but then the other pieces of equipment wouldn't kick in or wouldn't kick over to keep them going. So it doesn't make any good to have the switches on the UPS if the people who need to access and get into the network and so on can, because they don't have power. Now, Brad did say that they have a generator that runs the entire building, but what we would have to do is we would have to try and get it so that the current is evened out during the time when the power drops, and when the power comes back on, that it doesn't slam the equipment and blow it out. That's what the UPS would function for at that point. So we have to take a look and say, what are the pieces of equipment that need to run during those times? And then let's get those onto the not only the generator, but the UPS to smooth out the current.
So are you asking to get, define the project and get quotes to okay to do that, or are you asking for us to go ahead and do the project?
So basically, the two desktops and the two monitors, not a big deal. Mike can get them, not a big deal. It's just not knowing for sure what we need on the UPS side of it.
Which that's what Gene's gonna tell us.
Yes, and that's what Gene, so I'm asking permission to go ahead and do this stuff, but we know we can cover, in that line item that we pay for computer supplies, we can cover the two desktops and two monitors. But we're gonna need to do an additional, to get the UPS, but we also don't know what that's gonna totally cost yet. So I guess I'm asking your permission to allow us to go ahead and get the two desktops, two monitors, and start the process so they can come down and see what it's gonna all entail.
Yeah. Yeah. That,
You're gonna get us a quote on that though, correct?
Yes.
On the UPS.
Yes,
Well,
yeah.
Good. I like that motion. Makes sense to me.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
all right, good.
So we can go ahead with the two desktops, two
Right.
monitors, but then get a quote for the rest of it, correct? Yeah. Okay.
You can ask Mark Mitchell if he wants his computer back.
And what does UPS do? What's that? What's UPS?
uninterrupted power supply,
Oh, okay.
battery backup.
I see.
So that's all I have for
All
today.
right.
Good. Thanks, Brad.
Very
Thank
good. Well, you've had some good weather.
Oh, this week's been beautiful. And like I said, they got out and hit it last week, and even in the heat, it's been good.
The one thing that we've talked about too is now that the corn's up, as far as asking the farmers to,
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
There's been if we get calls about intersections you can't see when you pull up, I go out and I will take down whatever corn. I actually pull up, look, take down, look at it again, take it down until you can see. So yes, that is good. And we appreciate the farmers go out and look at that stuff themselves and take care of it. That's great.
because boy, they plant right up to the corner. So,
Yes. They do. Yes, thank you as a safety thing, so we
Yeah.
appreciate the help with that. Letting us know, because we don't cover every road every day, so.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Brad. Ed, do you have anything for us?
No, I'm good.
Yes.
I guess I will say, Tony said that I'm going through conference. Kathy and I are both going. Kim's in the office, everything will run just like it's supposed to.
Okay.
And I'll take the mail down for you.
Thank you.
Shannon, did you want to help us with the insurance service agency discussion?
Yes, let me print that really quick.
Okay.
Usually later.
I don't know if we want to talk to Shelley and let her know we're running a little ahead or just wait and see how
You don't have,
we can.
So maybe
you don't have the
on-
broker record, right?
Sure.
Hey, Pastor, so,
Yeah, but she's not on till 11, so.
yeah, I mean, I can email her.
Yeah.
I don't know how far ahead by the time we get there.
All right.
I'm printing that right now, but the other two things that I have on my list for you guys was a couple weeks ago, I sent you a job description for the school health liaison of the health department. That is a position that is going to be funded by a grant, which I'm just coming back for the second approval because I added some verbiage at the request of the wage review committee about compensation. So as long as you guys are okay with that little sentence that I added, that one should be good to go.
Motion approved.
Okay, motion carries to approve the changes to that job description.
And then the other one that I have, I sent you guys yesterday, and that is for a position at Golden Meadows titled Resident Medical Coordinator. I've already identified an individual who currently works for us there that will be transitioned into that position should she accept it. So that still has to go to wage review committee and be approved by council before it gets funded, but you're my first step.
Motion approved.
Look good. Second.
All right, thanks for writing that up.
Yep.
I know that kind of created a definite change in that position.
That's the job description we're talking about.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, that just needs signed.
new position. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I have for you guys is a broker of record letter for our health insurance plan for 2024. We're going to be using USI Insurance Services, and Jody Kinji will be our agent. So Tony just passed that letter down. So as long as you guys are okay with moving to that, Stan will sign it, and then I will get that on file with them.
Need a motion.
I'll make a motion. Second. Did we get their contract figured out? We were going to talk with them about propose some language eliminating that opportunity for them to get compensated from the primary carrier.
Yeah.
Is that
That's step 2.
okay?
So I talked to Jody about that and asked her if she could, what we could do. And she said, well, normally we sign this first, and then we'll go back and do the specifics, because they draw up like an official contract with what we want in it and our language and our data,
Okay.
and then they send it over to us.
I guess I just felt like when we send a broker record letter to Liberty,
To Allied.
to Allied, wrong carrier, to Allied, that feels to me like we've entered a contractual relationship with USI. Well, I think we have, because we changed the broker of record,
Right.
such that USI is going to be authorized to act on our behalf.
So my understanding is that this letter just gives USI and Allied a means to communicate. And USI now has access to our data, but this doesn't actually offer USI, this doesn't give us any services from USI for 2024. So there's nothing that she can technically do on our behalf with this. It just says, hey, this is who we're appointing for the time being, contract later. That's how I understand it.
And probably without them having access to all the information that this letter gives, they're not able to enter into a meaningful contract without that information.
And the other company that we interviewed told me the same thing. They told me
Okay.
it's the same
We would have to
process.
sign this before they could enter into a contract with us. Is that, you agree with that, Mark?
Yep.
Okay.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we've got Shelley Bright, the clerk, coming in, but we're running a little bit ahead of schedule. We've got Zach, is it Loniger?
Yes, sir.
From Bungie. Would you like to come up?
Yeah.
Don here with me.
All right.
You got a business card? You got a business card? Oh, thank you. I didn't think I'm allowed to get a business card anymore. How do you go last name?
Morning.
Oh, got a little handout.
All right.
It's ill.
What are you guys up to today?
Buying beans,
Buying beans, there you go. Old beans, yeah.
old beans.
Everybody's emptying their bins, yeah. Thank you.
They're looking good.
Wheat was good this year. Do you take any wheat? Yeah,
So, yeah, my name's Don Weiss, so from the area,
okay. Good.
and we have a fancy farms in southern Allen County. And
Okay.
I also work as the commercial manager at Cape.
Cool.
So my first time here, I'm Zach Lonaker. I'm
Hey, it's nice to meet you. Thanks
Yes.
for coming.
Facility manager at Bungie. So we had met with the sheriff and the chief and Brad talking about a little bit of change in traffic pattern that we're going to be having during our annual shutdown. So on the handout there is kind of a map. If you start on the left-hand side of the first page with what our traffic flow is going to be. But the basis of this is our normal loading area is going to be under construction as we're replacing our custody scale in our meal loadout. So we'll be directing traffic over to our flat storage on Monmouth Road during this outage period and loading vehicles over there. So that's what the premise of.
So the truck line to dump will run down Monmouth Road on the
So this will be
second.
strictly for loading. Our beans coming in will still be through the elevator. From the past, from when we presented something similar, that was for dumping beans and bringing stuff around the bowls. This is kind of the opposite. We're actually going to be loading out over there, which we do from time to time, but this is going to be a more sustained period.
So you'll load out into dump trucks and those will come up Monmouth to second.
No, we can't. So on the second page there, it shows the exit, or on the back page, shows the exit of the bowl. So the traffic pattern's going to come into the plant. We're going to scale the trucks in, and then we're going to send them back out to 27. And they'll come down the short section 850 to Pickwa and then to Monmouth. They'll go in a counterclockwise pattern around our flat storage, and then they will head back out towards Pickwa Road. So we will not be traveling into town with any of these trucks.
Because I know we've had some complaints about truck traffic through Monmouth too already.
Nope. And that's why we're just trying to get everything out in front of everybody. We've reached out to the Democrat and local radio and Urban Witness, just a local alert that there'll be some increased truck traffic. We did meet with, like I said, Sheriff and Brad, and kind of walk through everything. In the past, I freely admit that things got a little backed up on Monmouth, and that's probably the complaints that you're referring to.
Because when people call me, then I call the sheriff.
Yes, sir. I don't want that.
So generally speaking, what kind of volume are you talking about here?
Probably 60.
60 trucks a day, and this is just for that 2-week period.
Okay.
And one of the big problems that we had.
I guess I'd add one other thing, Zach, it's only during daylight hours,
Okay.
7 to 7,
Nothing at night.
nothing at night.
Okay.
One of the things that, and probably the complaints last time is, we scaled the trucks in and out at our flat storage, so they went directly over there. So if a piece of equipment or anything broke down, all of a sudden the trucks start lining up along Monmouth. On the page, on the first page there, all of our queue and all of our accumulation for trucks will actually be in the plant and over at the old Ruan building, similar to what we do with beans. And we'll be requiring the trucks to weigh in at the plant itself. So we're kind of controlling how many trucks are out in this pattern at a time. The accumulation will all take place in the plant this time. So that's really one of the bigger changes, something that we saw the last time we did this, that we're working to correct. So we got some remote red light, green lights, and they'll all the trucks will be passing through our scales in the plant prior to being released over to the bowl. So I believe the plan is to start with about 5 trucks in the loop from our scale over to the bowl, and then we'll kind of watch and see what the backup situation is, and we can add or reduce that amount that's in that loop at any given time.
All right. Well, I don't know if there's any better way to notify the people in Monmouth that it's coming. I mean, not that it make any difference, but at least that way they would understand it.
Yes.
So, and it sounds like through the paper and the radio.
I also reached out to Vicky at the transportation for North Adams. I haven't actually got in touch with her, but she's got a message, and I believe Todd Garris reached out to Carrie there at the wastewater treatment plant, just to let them know there'll be some extra traffic right there. So trying to be as.
Brad, any concerns?
No, they really planned this out well, and their goal is, so the trucks, once they actually leave their plant to go 27 around Monmouth, or Pickwood to Monmouth, their goal is to only have 5 or 6 trucks at a time, kind of in that loop, that rotation. So it's not gonna be a lot of trucks. They're gonna load them in and out quickly over there at the bowls. So they're empty coming around that way. And then once they leave the bowls, they'll go back and they'll be headed back north. And once they get up there to Pickwood, they're gonna have to either go right to go to 224 or left to go back to 27. So no, they're gonna do a very good job of limiting the number of trucks that are gonna be in that loop at a time.
Any issues with getting out from Monmouth Road onto 27? You're going to need to turn.
Monmouth and 27 is not too bad. You have a pretty decent wide intersection. And I've talked with them too. They're gonna work with us if some signs would happen to get hit here and there. You know, they're gonna work with us on that. If somebody happened to get off in the side ditch, tear it up, they're gonna work with us on that, so. And all the bridges out there, they're very capable of handling all this, so.
Very good. I don't know what else you'd have to do to make it work. So,
And, definitely take some feedback from this time, and just like from last time, work to make it better. I'm sure we'll have some learnings that we'll adapt as we get.
When you come out on Monmouth onto 27, are you going to have to turn left, come back to the plant to rescale the
There will
truck?
be no reason for them to back. They'll
Okay.
be heading to their destination.
Okay.
They actually have a scale over there at the bowl.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, they don't have to.
The last time we had trucks doing 2 loops. They would hit the scale at the flat storage to weigh in, go around again, and that's where some of that backup on Walnut took place. So by utilizing our scale in the plant, we're open to control the releasing of trucks at that point.
Good deal. We need an action on this.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Do we need an action on this?
It's notification.
yeah, I don't
Feel
know
like
if
we're
there's
changing
anything.
anything.
We're not changing truck routes. We're not,
Good.
yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Well,
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming in. So,
Shelley's here now.
You guys can already have.
all right. Well, Shelley, thanks for coming over early. Would you like to come up?
Okay, how we doing today?
So what?
I got a lot of stuff.
No.
Oh, Karen
no.
groans.
Sure.
Oh, let me get my glasses.
Okay.
What is her name, Stan? Who's this?
Shelley Bright, she's the.
Books to clerk's office? She's the clerk. I see. B-R-I-T-E?
Got a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Shelley, how's your first name spelled?
Shelley, S-H-E-L-L-Y.
Okay, no E.
No E, no. Don't need an extra vowel.
You're a deputy clerk, right?
I'm actually the.
She's the.
Oh, you're the clerk? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I forget that. Yeah, I don't know yet.
He's a deputy reporter.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, the first thing I wanted to talk about was, and actually it's not to pay, it's, well, it is to pay, but to paint. We have some poles that I had to rapidly find a new place for. These poles are used for the chute for election day. So they just like stands and we put the ropes through them. I don't know if you even notice that when you go vote or whatever. They're pretty rusty. So I went ahead and obtained a quote from Chris Murdoch. And what I would do is it's for $655 for all there's 50 of them that I'm going to keep. The rest of them I'm having the transfer station, they destroy them. I just would like to get those repainted. So for the general election, so they look pretty nice.
You have money in your budget to do that?
I was going to take it out of the election board office supplies is the only thing I could figure out that I could take it from. If that would work.
Probably have to do the transfer.
I do have some money in there right now.
How much you say, 650?
It's actually 62 is the election board.
No, the amount
Oh,
of the quote.
$655.
655.
So is it better to paint those than get, I mean, do they make those
Yeah, I
plastic
thought-
ones or whatever? Or-
Paint them, Chris is pretty good. I've seen some of his work. Actually, he was referred to by Jeff McIntosh. He said, hey, I've had him paint stuff at the transfer and you want to have him look at them? And I did. He's like, yeah, I can do them. And actually I got them moved over to the Quanzai building. That's the city, we own now over Grant Street. So they got it all moved over there. So they're centrally located. I can have them painted and
Good deal.
I think he's pretty conscientious.
yeah.
And in this case, with the small amount that's within her budget, which she probably didn't even need. to come
That's
to
what I was
us
gonna
with.
say. Do I need
I
to
don't
even
think-
approach for something like
I
this?
think under the $2,500, as long as it's in your budget,
Yeah.
just do it.
Okay. I'd rather ask for
I get it.
permission
I
than
get it.
get slapped on the hand. Okay, and here's the biggie. So, as I don't know if you had received copies. I sent it to Julie Marie and Tony, but I don't know if he forwarded on to you my request for ARPA funds for the scanning project that I've been looking into. Were you able to send that?
I don't remember if I did or there
I
was,
got copies.
there were several
I
things I
have-
sent.
Aware of it, I guess. I'm not sure how I became aware of it. I'm aware you're working on
I
standing
think I
budget.
might have sent that and a couple other things.
I didn't make you a copy because
No, that's fine,
'Cause I
because
think I
I
provided-
think I've got them in here.
I attended many change committee meetings to see the best fit, because this definitely involves IT.
Yeah.
So with this, I'm requesting $500,000 from ARPA funds to be used to scan our records, pretty much the majority of all our records. The records, if you do not know, and I don't know if we have talked about this before, I know I've printed linked in the committee. We have records over in Bern, our bank over there. We've been storing them for quite a number of years. They go all the way back to the 1800s. A lot of them are getting deteriorating, like in the books and stuff like that. And then, of course, we have them in different spots in our courthouse basement. These two ideal places are not conducive for what records are, especially if we get a request from the public that need a record, especially for genealogy or anything else that is needed, like bills and stuff like that, over in Bern. It's a 20-minute loop for me to go get it. Wait, especially the hours of the bank, 8 to 4, to make sure that I can go get these records. As I said, the records are deteriorating. So the basic thing of me is wanting to do this is we got to preserve our records. The clerk's office is a big one for preserving records. They should be in a great spot, especially be able to be quickly findable instead of having to, okay, we have to look here, then we have to go here, and then we got to go get it and then bring it back. It's a lot of delay, especially for the public, if they really would want records. What I did in the committee is that I presented and I interviewed 3 vendors. The first one that I had listed on my memo was the last one I actually interviewed. US Imaging is a very well company that scans records. I was very impressed with them as far as their scanning capability. They gave an excellent presentation to the committee, the Change Committee. And so, but we went into depth with that. This company did not really provide a great software for searching these records. They're basically used for another department here in the county. That's why I kind of did look at them. But for the records that I would want to be able to user-friendly and search, they just didn't really have a great software, in my opinion. And also, the quote that they provided is you want to look at their quote, full quote for all records is not justifiable. It's over almost $2 million to scan my records. So with that, I was like, okay, I want to eliminate that because I can't really justify the cost of using that company. The second one is SBS Portal. Many clerks use this company, and also I did not have them do a full extension of all my records for the quote. They did the trifolds and what I basically had over at the bank. They also have a decent amount of a software program that they could provide to us. But again, I didn't feel like they really wanted my business. That was the gist of it that I felt like too. Plus the understanding of a training for their software. And the reason I'm using software, we did look into, we do have a software here at the county, it's called Doc Record. But with many conversations with Mike, it would be very difficult for any of us to try to code it, any of these records that are scanned. So if trying to take the time, I don't have the manpower, IT does not have the manpower. So trying to use the software that we do have, it wouldn't work. Or it would, but it would be time consuming.
It would be difficult.
And still a lot more money on a different vendor. The last company I used or have on my memo is Document Mountain. They were the first ones I really interviewed, and I was really impressed with them as well. For one thing, I thought we could use them for a cloud-based internet software. You've got the record scan, you'd be able to look at through the internet. But again, there was some security issues using such a thing. So I went back to them and said, hey, do you guys have software that you can also? And they do. So basically, this Document Mountain was more user-friendly for me. And I think I had my chief deputy look at it as well, and the committee. They actually took some of my records, they scanned them, and they were easy to find. Now, I did the 1800 records, like normally you wouldn't request, but something to see the quality and be able to search. And they will be able to do that better. That's it. So with all of that, I asked for them to provide me a full quote for different options. So they provided me, and I asked them to do a full-fledged of all my records. So they could do like a monthly, they can do a one-time, or they can do, what was it, the third option? I'm sorry. One-time deployment, monthly deployment, and monthly host. There's the 3 things that they identified as far as how to give me an estimate of what it would cost. Any of these that we would choose from to use would still, the software would be a monthly expense as far as software, because they are retaining records on a software base. But Document Mountain, after we would go through our physical files, we would either be able to eliminate or preserve them or keep them here in some location. But our quantity of records would go down considerably after we scan some. Because actually next week, I'm having Indiana Archives representative come up. He's going to look at my records and see after we can scan them, can we just actually destroy them? So that he can give me a good idea. So that I won't have so many different places to look, or I have one place to look and it's quite downsize.
Is there any amount of records that you could purge that you wouldn't even have to scan at all?
No.
No.
All
We're
records.
pretty much required to keep everything.
And digitizing would be the best way to go for preserving these records. Even microfilm, I don't even have a reader, even if I was requested. And the only records that I think we do have microfilm, they're over at the library. So that's why I went into looking, researching, doing the best homework I could to try to find before I presented it to you as commissioners. Plus the IT questions I didn't even know about, which helps a lot. Mike Brown gave me good insight. He helped me a lot to understand.
Is anybody else using this document now?
Yes, there's a couple counties down in Indy, or I think that back, Howard County, and I think Clinton County is using them. They just started branching into counties, whereas SBS has been in counties. The other one, as I said, has been, I don't know, other than our own recorder's office, but they're having issues with indexing. So that's all I know. But again, their price tag was just a little too high.
Well, to me, what I got out of it too, two of the big things, once you scan, they have to be searchable and they have to be readable. And those are just, and so in order to make them searchable, then you have to have the software that works with our doc record, which our offices use, and so that's a pretty important part of it.
I just thought, yeah, you just scan them and put them in there and you'll be able to find them. No, I don't know enough about the IT app world to do that. So when Mike said that's very difficult, you'd have to go in and you have to have it coded and then this is how it's searchable and this is that and that. I'm like, I don't know how to do that, nor would my staff would be able to know how to do that. So that's why I looked into, they can do it if we went that way. But again, it would be like, I've got records, but I can't find them, kind of thing. So.
Well, and part of what happens, I look at too, is what happens if we don't scan. Then we've got all these records in the courthouse basement and the bank in Geneva, and they're in a wet, moldy basement. They're difficult to access. They're degrading because of a poor environment. And these are records that we're statutorily required to keep. So by scanning them, they would be easier accessible, they would be searchable, and they wouldn't degrade. They wouldn't continue to degrade. So, and then if we could destroy them, then that would be that much less space that we need to keep all these paper records. So.
I think the concern I have and the experience that I've had is that once any records are imaged, number one, you're tied to that company for life because typically you have to have their software to search their records. They retain the records. We don't keep the records.
They can provide us, say, a thumb drive.
Okay.
They are able to do that because that's when we looked at if we wanted to use doc record, they could provide to us, hey, we can put it on a media in some form. I think thumb drive would be a little too, try to put them all on a thumb drive, I don't know why. But they could give that to us and we terminate. There is a possibility.
But again, my fear is that we would have, the only way we could actually access them or search them would be by utilizing the software that they use to scan them in with, or the software that's built in. And if we're already kind of tied to one document imaging solution through doc record, we just add another risk of, what's the name of this company? Document Mountain not being around 5 years from now, or 15 years from now, or 20 years from now. And all of our documents are imaged, but we can't find anything because the images are out here and they're not searchable, and they're not, that we can't, they're not accessible. How long's Document Mountain been around? What's their longevity?
That's a good question. I didn't even look at our, because they do other big companies. I know that, but I don't know how long they've been
Okay, well,
around.
maybe they've been around a long time. I don't know.
The reason I was very user friendly was what got me, and that's why I looked at their stuff and I did webinars with them and try to ask their IT a little bit more stuff after our meetings and stuff so that I can understand. But I don't know how long they've been around. But the thing of it is though, I don't feel if we use a company that we would lose our records if we, so it'd be like saying Odyssey, sorry, we're not using you anymore. And that would be cast or stop,
Yeah.
So we still have CSI, and that was still a problem. We still have, and which I want to eventually eliminate. That's another program that was used for the state for Odyssey. And they didn't, a lot of the records we can't even get access to, or we have issues with because certain things, Mike could probably tell you better than I, because there was certain updates that we didn't do or something like that to access in order to find some of these records that we needed that didn't get converted to Odyssey. I remember we had to keep them on.
I just know my experience with digitized documents is not good. It all looks good in the beginning, and next thing you know, you've got garbage in, garbage out, you can't find anything, and we're still going to end up with mountains of boxes because we can't rely on the image documents. That's just my caution. I don't know how to solve that. Maybe this solution is the right way to solve that. I just know that there are many ways that scanned documents fail. The solution fails over time.
And you know what, Steve, I could actually ask the vendor, any of them if you want, to come back and express their way of doing it. If those concerns are, I can have them come back to the meeting and explain further detail, because I am doing my homework for 3 of them. I'm lucky I can keep them all separated.
I can't, and I don't want to have to do that. I feel like had you come with the solution that says, we're already with this company, we've got all of our auditors, got all of his all their documents scanned with doc imaging, and we're going to use doc imaging because that's kind of the standard in the county, but now we're going to add another solution with all of the inherent risks of a document scanning solution and all the ways that they can fail. We're going to add another solution to that and say, now we've got 2 or 3 of them that we've got to manage.
I understand.
And hope they don't go out of business, and hope their software keeps being updated, and we'll have to pay for the updates, and we've got to pay for the searching software, and that goes on. You're looking at documents that have been around for 10s and 20s and 30s of years, and so
Hundreds of years.
it's a long time.
We should have been done
It's a long time
while ago.
bet.
And the thing is, this was my first mission before I even got into
But
office.
I can tell you, if we'd have done it 10 years ago, you would be yelling because you can't find anything. These solutions, I hope, keep getting better and better and more reliable and more sustainable and less proprietary and more universally available, such that Document Mountain goes out of business. We can use XYZ, and we can use ABC, and we can use AFG and still get the same documents. And
Focusing on the software.
yeah,
We need to focus on the record.
I thought they had
The record-
software that would incorporate with Doc Records.
Any one
Did I
of these
misunderstand?
vendors can provide to us a thumb drive or some media of our records. It will not be lost. It would be on our media. So if we, for some reason, the software, we would be able to have that record when we could put it on another software if
Right.
need be.
And that's what I understood too when we talked, is that it
So
would
we
be
would not
our
lose it.
record.
but the scanned image is obviously the record you're talking about would be the scanned image, and the scanned image includes markers and includes ways that you can go in then and find that document. And I just want to I'm just encouraging you to make sure that there are multiple ways that we can find that document, that we keep the document records, that they not be proprietary to Document Mountain, and when Document Mountain goes out of business 10 years from now, our records are gone. So there's a lot of ways for it to go sideways, is all I'm saying. So I would have felt better had you come to us and say, yep, we're going to use Doc Record because the county's already tied to Doc Record, and we already know how to use it, and we already own the software, we own the searching, and
Well, that's the thing, we don't have any. The only thing we have. Yes, please, Mike, help me.
It's not a matter of just throwing them in the doc record and then it knows what to do with them at that point. There's no interface specifically with any of the departments that we have that's been coded in.
okay.
So whatever we do with doc record, what we currently do, even with the claims part, they've had to come in and we've had to make a project to specifically take the documents that we have to recognize where names are and dates and things like that, and then have scannable software that can be searched on by indexing. Then we can enter stuff in and be able to find those documents. Someone has to program that in, even with doc record. In every department that we have, some things would be similar, but there'd be some things that would be different, department by department, that we would have to code an interface into that to do the things that they need to do. So what Stan probably heard, which I heard from one of the vendors, is, oh, we'll have them index, you just dump it into doc record, you're good to go. And I looked at him and I said, really? Like, you think that that's going to give us an interface that our users are going to be able to look at and have drop-down windows and so on so that they can do searching on that? That isn't going to happen until someone builds an interface. So we had doc record from the standpoint that certain departments were doing things that there is no software to do it on when we go to scan. If the records, the recorder's office, they're using the first one, US Imaging. But they're up there right now and they're indexing inside of their department all the time. I mean, we talked to Tom, Rena and Tom are spending all day long indexing, putting in what to search for when they scan. They're indexing and doing that on each scan that has taken place on new documents. And they're using just the software that was provided by US Imaging at that point, because doc record didn't have anything. We would have to pay to have someone build an application, just like we did with the auditors department and the claims process. They had to come in and they had to work on it and they had to build it. So anything that's more time consuming and so on is going to be lengthy. So we could have scanned documents. We might be months, if not years, trying to build an interface in doc record.
So as far as your ask today, are you asking whether we would like you to go ahead and scan those? Are you asking for the money to scan them? What are you asking us today?
ARPA money to be approved, or to go in front of council to be approved for. Actually, I would choose Document Mountain as the vendor, but I don't know with procurement. Mark probably let me know that a little more so, since it is a higher amount, that if we have to do bids, if that is something that we have to do, I'm not sure.
It depends on what you're doing. When it comes down to software and data, then it's somewhat unique. So what's the cost? I mean,
I requested $500,000 for all records to be scanned.
Shelley, you asked if I had said that. If you remember, it came to me and it was a large file that had to be
There we
downloaded.
go.
So I walked over,
Yeah.
you had printed it all and I left it there. So I may have sent it to them, but they may not have been able to open that very easily either.
And I got her a copy too.
So That's what happened with that.
Okay.
I don't know if Mark ever got it or not.
No, I sent it to Jill and Marie directly.
Okay.
So I guess I wouldn't mind, asking Mike, do you feel that by scanning records, we can continue to maintain them as a permanent record and have them be searchable and accessible into the future?
Yes. We need to. I mean, we're one of the, I won't say last counties, but we're getting lower and lower and lower. All these other counties have started this project. They're ideally getting them done. And then some have gone to SBS, one vendor, and then they switched to Document Mountain because of training and usability. So that's the thing too. You don't want to go to one and go, you know what?
Yeah, and
I don't wanna
I
use that
absolutely
anymore.
support your effort. I think we need to go that direction to scan documents. It feels like that over time, historically anyway, that the effort has failed. Not necessarily here, but the industry, the document imaging industry, I think has struggled to provide a consistent, user-friendly solution that allows people over a period of time to continue to access documents. That's the reason maybe when we bought, who do we use now? Doc Record.
Oh, Doc.
Maybe when we bought Doc Record, there was they told us how good it was going to be also, and then we find out we have to write special programs to be able to find the documents we
Knew
need.
that up front, Steve. Knew that up front.
Yeah.
Because some departments state there is no software specifically.
Well, at least it's good to know that up front and not have some salesman tell you, like they tried to tell you, oh, it'll happen automatically, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. I had to sit down with Shelley, and I mentioned it in one of the Thursday meetings. That's just not the way it works. You just don't import it in. It's there in the database, but it isn't in a place where the users can actually have an interface in front of them that they can use and be able to find the documents find the documents they're wanting to search for. Like if it's somebody's name, something like that, or if it's a date period, or any of those things have to be identified in the document, and they have to be what's called indexed. And then once it's indexed, then they'll be able to search upon that index field that they have there. But if it's not indexed for that, try as they might not find it, and they have to be able to scan with software that most everyone has now. A lot of companies have it, we can go through, that makes them so that they're readable.
Yeah.
The scanning can read them and kind of have that all down pat. It says, okay, this looks like a name, this looks like a date. If it was an invoice, this looks like an invoice number, And if we had documents in which everything was in a certain place, you can even say, look into this field in this area, and that'll be your invoice number, say, or something like that. So,
And I think that's going to be your challenge, Shelley, is that your documents are going to be all over. There's not going to be no consistency, I guess, with where a particular indexed field would be found on a piece of paper or on a document. So you can't say, go to this particular part of the piece of paper and there will be the date or there will be the reference number or
That's what I liked
whatever.
about Document Mountain that presented, because when they scanned a document, it was PDF and recognizable. You know how you do an OCR on your document? That's actually was very beneficial to me because I do that a lot for my background even. It was nice to be able to search, I'm going to look for Shelley. And it goes right to that on that document. So that's what I really was impressed with that, because a lot of us, we don't want that entire record because it's that whole file is scanned, especially those trifolds that are in there that's got everything on it. We need a specific record. We don't need the whole file. So that was what I was really trying to gain for, especially the public doesn't know, especially back in the day. They don't know case numbers. They may know a year, but the name is what they're going to be looking for. And that was the biggest thing I wanted to go for as far as indexing would be the name for older records too.
Well, and I don't mean to interrupt, but it seems like the discussion is kind of going a couple directions. One is Shelley feels that confidently that this is a way to permanently maintain the records that we are statutorily required to maintain, and scanning is the correct way to do that. And we have investigated those processes and feel confident that those are processes where it doesn't sound like Steve is confident that scanning is the way to go ahead and doesn't
Oh,
trust.
no,
those processes.
I believe it's the way to go. I just know that there are a lot of potholes in the road, and I just want to make sure that.
Well, and I feel too that Shelley has worked with multiple vendors. She's been up to talk with Mike and the rest of us multiple times to investigate all the specific cues of the software to index, the software to scan and clarify all the images. I mean, you've done a lot of investigation. So the question I think that we have is, do we want to encourage her to move ahead with this project through the means of ARPA money or not? You know, so is that something that do we want to table? Do we feel confident to have her move ahead, or what's your thoughts?
I guess I want to see some proposals. I want to see the actual, I need to sit down with you, Shelley, and I need to see the actual, I need to see the scope of services, what we're looking at, scope of the project, whether or not we've got any procurement issues. I hate to, have you just say, okay, well, we approved $500,000 towards a scanning project, and we don't know the scope of the project yet, or what vendor, or.
Well, maybe
I think you want a
let's do this.
recommendation.
Vendors back?
Let's go
Not
ahead.
necessarily, but I think I could sit down with you and cover it.
For today's purposes, let's go ahead and table this. Let's let Mark take a look at the proposals that you've got, and maybe Shelley, if you want to get together with Mark and kind of look at the proposals that you've been given. And then, maybe Mark can come back to us too, and between the two of you, come back with a recommendation on, that might be better.
This may be one of those situations where we need an RFP where you can actually go out to the vendors. My fear is when we go to the bidding statute, we're going to be required to accept a low bid, and you may not be happy with that. Mike may not be happy with that.
At least you won't be getting US imaging for sure.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that, Mark, if she consults with Mark, he can help look at that too. Maybe we do need an RFP and maybe not.
I support the image of these documents. I really do. And it sounds like a big price tag, but $500,000 is probably not unreasonable to spend.
With all records, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
All the
we've,
records that the clerk's office has. That includes books too.
So as much time as you two need to take a closer look at this to where you're comfortable coming back and make sure that it's gonna maintain our records that.
well, scanning has been around for a long time, and I can tell you that county, we've intentionally been hesitant to, well, number one, we've maintained our paper records,
Yeah.
especially our deed records, our
Yeah.
tax records, and our plat books, because it's important. And I remember years ago, we looked at some scanning, and that was the issue, is how accurate is it? How good is the image? Can we see it? Because that is a problem. And so we've kind of let other counties kind of do those things. And so now, and I'm not saying that's not the direction, we have gone that direction on a number of other projects, but it's a big spend, it's a big decision, and we just want to make sure we make the right decision, and we know it's going to cost quite a bit of money. But maintaining those records permanently in a legible format and in a manner that we can find them, that is the county's responsibility. And because we got to keep those records preserved. So
Why I wanted to at least present to you to know the necessity that it needs to be done. So,
yep.
all right.
And you mentioned the cost of the first one, almost 2 million. What was the FBS cost? What was the amount of money on that one?
SBS was 380, but that was not an entire accurate.
What wasn't
That was only a certain segment of my.
And what were we talking about? We had
480.
480.
480.
480.
Okay.
One time.
Yeah, with this discussion, I think we've got a means to move ahead, towards the end. Naomi, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just have a question. So we're friends with Shelley. We're actually here for the Republican Women's Group, and we were just wondering if Mark could really tell us what is the legal definition of this ARPA money going to? I thought it was supposed to go to citizens for mental health affected by COVID, and it was COVID money. And now we've spent it on all these things. Here we have a list of all the facility things we've spent it on. So what is the legal definition of how we're supposed to spend this money?
Well, it was fiscal recovery funds, and initially there was a very limited scope, and it did include infrastructure, water, sewer infrastructure. It included certain other projects that the county could do. There was some, obviously, COVID relief components to it, but then they changed, like they always do, they changed the rules, and it can be used for anything, basically any county infrastructure project or public facility project, anything in general to upgrade county facilities, county expenditures, such as, there are projects at the county in the absence of these funds, and quite honestly, it's about like, we're experiencing the problem, I think, that occurs sometimes when somebody leaves the church a lot of money. All the people in the church get into a fight over how to spend the money. Everybody's got an idea. And so I can't wait until all these ARPA funds are gone, quite honestly, because that's what happens. The county all of a sudden has, had almost $7 million, and they're told essentially how they need to spend it in the best way. And so then everybody's got an idea how to spend the money. When it comes down to it, I think the county's responsibility is to make sure that it's spent in a manner to best serve, the needs that the county would like to do that they otherwise couldn't do, from their tax revenues. And so
The taxpayers' money originally, it goes to DC, it comes back. And so we're saying, what is it helping the citizens for mental health, for, COVID, what it was designed for?
okay,
And so-
but when we talk about mental health, but I think the component that we had relative to Crossroads was there were specific prohibitions against having funds go to organizations that are religious backed, and that's in the rules.
Yeah, but
And
that's
so,
not true because, they've done it in Fort Wayne.
well, I don't care what all the other kids are doing. We've got a legal opinion from Barnes and Thornburg that says we can't do it. And so I think that's where we're coming from. And so, because at the end of the day, we don't want to have an expenditure that, following a federal audit, then they say, well, you shouldn't have done that, and that wasn't a permitted expenditure, because the county, isn't flush with money. And so
Should we check into that though and see if that really is the case?
we have looked into that. I can talk to Julie Marie again about it, but I know we have looked into that. We specifically got a,
So then if you guys build pickleball courts in Decatur, are you gonna go build pickleball courts in Bern? So we're saying.
I don't know,
Maybe Bern needs.
but that is
pickleball.
parks. So that's parks infrastructure.
I know, but you did it in Decatur,
Mm-hmm.
so it could go through parks or.
Yeah, but that is specifically for the public. That is a governmental entity, and it's available for everybody. It has no affiliation with any religious organization whatsoever. That's
Right
government.
now I'm asking, is that something you guys would consider, is building pickleball courts in Bern?
They might. We haven't received a proposal like that, but it would be for parks, certainly.
Right, I mean, okay, so it's just, I know, no, I know, I'm just saying, like, as a citizen here, I'm like, we're really gonna, Shelley's asking for 500,000 for this ARPA money for, I mean, I know you need to get your records intact and everything, I feel for you, but I'm saying, really, this is what we're spending?
Yeah.
Our
Right.
It's like,
Okay,
it's
but
hard to swallow.
yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I would just like, if you could look into that, because you hear how with a lot of these non-governmental agencies, they do get government monies and they are religious organizations. It's not just in Allen County. So I find it hard to see that that would be a problem, but I appreciate the need to make sure of that too, because it's better to find out the fact. And the fact that in operation, it really is not sponsoring one religion. It's just a faith-based religion that encourages them to find something bigger than themselves to be successful in overcoming their addictions. But also what I loved about the concept was that the law enforcement, judicial system, it was right there. They'd be networking together, and it wasn't a separate operation that, you know, it would be something that was actually visible. I was actually proud of the fact that Adams County might do something that would offer a solution proactive before we have people on the streets wandering around our neighborhoods. And not that that won't happen. It's a growing problem when we ignore it. And then we look back and say, well, we should have done something back then. I just think it is something that socially, you know, we talk about potholes, kind of a pothole finding the right solution here. The roads are getting fixed. Well, socially, there's potholes too. And if we don't address them, they just get bigger.
I don't mean to interrupt you here, but I think we're kind of getting off the subject a little bit. Our initial issue at hand is the county clerk and how she wants to continue maintaining records. So I think we've set a path forward for her to be in consultation with Mark on looking at the proposals that she's investigated. So I think that's our path forward for that issue. So I appreciate you coming in. And I guess just a little bit of a comment to address Naomi's comments and your comment as far as looking into this. From the time that this American Rescue Plan Act was proposed, and from the time that it was initially determined how much money we would get, what the guidelines were, we have used our legal counsel, which was Mark, as the Commissioner's Counsel. We've used Julie Marie Brown as the County Counsel, and they have also conferred with Barnes and Thornburg, who have very much specialized in how can you use the ARPA money. So I think when you say, oh, can we just look into it? We've been looking into it for years. They've been looking into it from a legal perspective for years, literally. Just a minute, I'm not done. And so when you say, let's just look into it, they have, I mean, we have tremendous legal expertise that has looked at just what can we do with the American Rescue Plan Act money. So the other thing I want to say as far as just filling potholes or just maintaining records, the county has some county government has some statutory responsibilities, you know, and one of those is the health of the general public. So we do look into that. We look into the mental health aspect, the clinical health aspect. Another one is infrastructure, which we look into roads, bridges, such. But the other one is the judicial system, which includes the clerk and includes the record clerk of courts. So we have some very well-defined statutory responsibilities. So if it was just me deciding how to spend my money, I could give money to whoever I wanted to, but it's not that way. We have some very well-defined things that we're responsible for sitting here as three commissioners and sitting as the county council. So, you know, we look at what our responsibilities are, and we look at the best way to continue to provide the services that all of our citizens can expect. So yes, are we looking into the mental health aspect? We definitely are from multiple aspects. One, by supporting our county hospital, which has a strong behavioral health unit, which employs multiple counselors. We look at it through the judicial system, just like with Ian's programs. We don't just put people back out on the street. Ian has programs to help people transition back into productive lives. And that's something that our county supports. And so we have multiple ways that we look at the clinical and mental health aspect of our citizens and residents of the county. So, another thing that we're going to have available to us is the money that's coming back into the county from the opioid settlement. So we formed an opioid steering committee that's looking at how to support rehabilitation with that money. So the Crossroads organization and community is a wonderful benefit, and I think it's going to be a wonderful benefit to the county. But as far as the relationship between the Crossroads board and that organization, and the relationship between that and the county, it is going to be co-occurring, if you want to say it that way. But sometimes we have to, in spite of what we want to do, we have to stay in our lane, and we do that with the benefit of our legal advice from Mark, from Julie Marie Brown, from Barnes and Thornburg. And so, we have to stay within where we need to stay legally. So it's like Mark says, we don't want to designate ARPA money for a certain cause and then find out through an audit that, oh, by the way, you've got to pay that back. It's like, it becomes very complicated. Do we see the Crossroads organization as a positive thing? Yes, I do, definitely do. But we have to follow our legal advice, and yes, they have looked into it. So anyway, I don't know if that speaks to.
And I'm willing to, I'll talk to Julie Marie, and I'll look at, it was Dustin from Barnes and Thornburg, and look at his opinion again. And I'm more than willing to look at it again. It's a serious need, no doubt about it. And, and the religious component of it, I think, is necessary for success. But then we've got to figure out, how do you, got to be very careful when you blend the lines of government and religion. And that's what we've got to be careful about.
I appreciate the explanation.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I think that's what we're wanting, is to understand that we understand there's a lot of needs.
Yeah.
Thank you for thinking of that. We
Yeah.
do. We just like to see it addressed before it's a bigger problem.
Well, I guess hopefully, I just want you to know there's a lot of things that go on behind the scene that people are working on and trying to accomplish.
We don't hear that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I don't know if this is the time to bring it up or not, but it goes along with this. I would just like to know what the monies from the sale of the acreage around Golden Meadows, how is that being dispersed? Has it been dispersed? And
It's
what is the ramification?
what happened before that ground was ever sold. The county council designated a specific fund. It was a capital improvements fund. And that fund had very specific parameters on how it could be spent. And so that happened before the farm ever sold. And so then once the farm was sold, all the proceeds from that, plus all the interest from those proceeds, is captured within that fund. So that is protected, and that is to be used for capital expenditures only, under that designated purpose.
And can that be used for mental health?
No, it's for capital expenditures only, so.
For the county home?
No, for capital expenditures only, which would include, let's say if we need facilities, remodeling, improvement, new facilities, like say a new building, that's what.
The county's looking at the reality that they're going to need to do a court project sometime in the future. And so they're going to have to build not necessarily a new courthouse, but they're going to have to build new facilities for Superior Court and probably probation and community corrections. And so it's going to be it'll be expensive, and that's why they set that money aside for that purpose. So significantly a large amount of money that the county expends every year goes towards courts and law enforcement and, community corrections, jail. It is a huge portion of the county's budget is maintaining all that. And so obviously mental health factors into it. It's a big component as well and an important component. And so it's, they've got to try to figure out what's the best way to do that and who they can partner with and make sure we can do it in a manner that's appropriate expenditure of public funds or any funds that the county gets. So they're difficult decisions, but.
Yeah.
I have one other question. What is the discussion about the response team for the 988 crisis line? Are you working with other counties? Could you have a response?
I don't know anything about that.
And it's not been discussed?
Stan, can I bring us back to what we were?
Certainly,
started?
yeah.
Okay, Shelley, I'm not quite for sure
Because I was like,
What
am I
we're-
ready to go?
what we're trying to pull off here, and I was wondering if I could come over to your
Yes.
office and
I
kind of
welcome
sit down.
anybody to come over and talk to me about this.
And,
I really do.
maybe you can
Even make
clarify it a little
we can
bit.
make a tour of it too, have lunch.
You know,
And you're
even all the-
buying, right?
Yeah, I'll buy.
No.
even all the times we sat through it, it's the difficult thing to understand all
I'll try to get a hold of you sometime
Yeah,
this week.
please
when
do,
you're
because
available.
I really want to show you everything that we have
Okay.
to deal with.
All right.
the,
All right. Thank you.
all right,
Thanks.
very good.
I'm done, right?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shelley.
All right. Rick, did you have anything?
I don't really have a lot. Until next time, Mike, maybe, some things he wants to bring up. More of a kind of a next commissioners meeting, possibly, I'd like to bring in 3 quotes for the generator project. I'll get the power down to the basement. So, myself, Mike and Gene coming in.
Is that ARP money? Have we already got a total dollar set aside for that?
Yeah, well, that's another thing I wanted to bring up. I mentioned to Tony prior to this meeting, where we at with the process that council did approve that. Was there a resolution that was made? Is that legal side of that, is that done yet?
Stan, could you stop the background noise on the couch?
Hey, could we have a discussion outside, please?
Thank you. Okay, would you go start again? I can park better here.
Okay, that's another thing I wanted to ask Steve is that council approved more money for that project. Is that legally, has that all been done? Has that been taken care of? I don't know if there was a resolution that had to be done.
I think they had to update the resolution.
Yeah, I was wondering what that updated was.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Where that laid at.
Do you know?
Well, the council approved 249,000.
And the commissioners, you all approved to go forward with this.
Right, as long as we had approved.
As long as we have the approval.
Yeah, and the last time you came, you were looking at $71,000 to complete that
We
power room
we had
project.
funds for that, but going on to that other phase, we would be needing that money that council approved and so forth. So
I guess I felt like at that point, council has approved up to that increased amount,
yes,
but I think we still have to follow the bidding statute to get the quotes and bring those quotes in, but I
and
think.
that's
we
what I
can
want to
approve.
present next week compared to.
I feel like council now has approved that
Yeah.
150 and whatever it was. 249, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever that was.
And I had mentioned this to Tony, so it's just a matter of, I guess I want to use the legal portion, is it okay
I don't
Bring
think you
this
have to
in
go back
next-
to council now. I think, I think.
So we
just
bring
have
this
to-
in next Tuesday, but we have to bring it in front of you all to get approval with those 3 quotes, 3 bids, scope of work, you know.
I don't think that would have to go back to council.
Shouldn't have to go back to council. As long as you're under the amount that they approve, you're fine.
And then we just gotta follow procurement,
Yeah.
so.
It's the same thing that happened with Park and Rec.
So anyway, just an update where we're at with that.
Okay. Thank
Next
you.
Tuesday, we'll be bringing that in.
Good deal.
Um, Shelley probably walked out.
And she ran out.
Shelley, I think we sent this out. Shredding would be August.
August 11th, and they need to have the stuff to this room by August 10th.
Yes.
I feel like I sent that
You did.
email.
You did. Just wanted to touch
Yeah.
base.
Yeah.
Okay. Steve, I really didn't have anything other than having been, he told me he talked to you. Did John Gilbert from ETS speak to you?
He did. I talked to him yesterday. Yes. He was just looking at the boilers out at Golden Meadows.
Yeah.
Going to give us a proposal maybe.
Yeah, he had called me this morning a little bit just to, I said, look, my only involvement is this. Did you speak to anyone else? And I think
He
said-
talked to me. Yep. I was just happened to be there.
Yeah.
It's not like he had an appointment with me or anything, but I happened to be there and Shannon was not, so.
So I said, well, get your quotes, whatever you guys.
I got him with Scott and they went and looked at the boilers.
Yeah.
That's all I know. I can
I don't know
barely
anything
spell
about it.
boiler, let alone know anything about keeping them running.
I just, beat maybe a little more of my time to mine.
Okay. You guys, I emailed this to you some time ago, but I know I didn't to you, Mark, and I didn't to you, Tony. But it's the 3 commissioners, you have it someplace in your inbox if you haven't taken some time to look at it. And what I was going to do today is talk about the WebEx project. And we have, if you go to bullet number 2 into this, it's like maybe 3 pages back where it says number 2, WebEx phase 3 onto there. And the initial approval for that was for $315,000 for phase 3 alone. And that was just for the equipment that was coming in for WebEx. But it didn't include any of the room remodeling and so on because we didn't have any CAD drawings at the time. And we had to go through and we had to take a look at 5 buildings. 5 buildings had to be remodeled or changed a little bit and to make this thing go. And so the first part was approved for just the WebEx equipment and the software and the cloud presence to add this onto the cloud presence. But then if you go to 2B, you'll see that the room construction, network cabling, wireless networking, we had to put in an additional hallway, various works done in all locations, which include community corrections, Superior Court for both Superior Court and probation, the courthouse for both circuit court and prosecuting attorney, and this building for the new room and so on, that was down into there. All those, the construction came up to be $55,261.09, as we know it right now. As we know, as we continue through some of this stuff, there's some changes and so on that have taken place. But that was not included in the original project fund up here because we didn't know what they were. That this thing was approved back in 2021. And then, you know, we're trying to gather and trying to find people to do work. You know, you've heard the story of how all this took place. We couldn't even find people to work, and when they did say they could work, it's like a year out and things like that. So we have that expenses going on. There's a few things left that we can only estimate, and Part C down into here, which is things dealing with some finished work for door locks and different places and furniture and stuff like that. So I just, you know, Bob Hakes, myself, Gene, Rick, Stan was involved with it. He's heard about it and so on. So we just kind of threw a number. We think that we're maybe looking at another additional 10,000. The other thing that came up with this with WebEx was the prior judge over at Superior Court, he brought up a good point at the time, was what do we do for a COOP plan in case something happens to the building and we don't have a place to have courts, you know, at the time. Well, that was after the initial approval for WebEx. And if you remember, there was a time right after that was approved where he wanted to relocate the court, Superior Court, for a day or so. And he thought it was just as easy for me to go out there and try and get everything deassembled from Superior Court, take it out in one day and put it in, and then have it back to court the next day so that they could think that was just truly impossible. And he says, well, what is our COOP plan? And he says, you're the guy who's supposed to do it because we're all technology based anymore in these places. And, you know, you take a look and there was no COOP plan. Like if something major happened with the building and what do we do to relocate it and so on. So down in the first floor with that particular area, if you look at it, I wanted to tell you about a plan so that you guys will recognize that we have thought about it and what we may have to add into WebEx on the first floor if we wanted to have a place that could accommodate that for the courts and for either one. It doesn't have to be Superior Court, but it could be circuit or whatever, you know. If that would take place where the courts would have to relocate, and let's say that could be opened up down there. There is a place where they can bring their whole staff in if I relocate my staff out. And if I even relocate, you could have someone present up in my office area, because this is another room in which they could have courts and off dates when you don't have commissioners meeting and council meetings and those sorts of things. They could actually have courts in here too. This room would suffice for that, and that was a thought process going forward with this room. But it's even better down on the first floor because we can have the judges' quarters just on the other side of the wall of that room. We could bring in the other staffs further down the hallway if we continue the remodeling down that hallway. And I say to my staff, we can relocate even if they had to work from home and drive to the places, you know, they would be willing to do that. I would be willing to move out of my office, work from home and drive if I needed to, or I can work pretty well from home currently. And so to do that, and also with the way that we're going to use that room now for training, and we're going to hire somebody to train, it would be beneficial if we had a second camera and display on the back wall, much like what we have in here, so that we could appease that. And I asked them, I says, well, what's that going to entail? And they said it's with the right type of camera and so on that's integrated in with the microphones and so on that we have down that room. And a large display, it's about $25,000. So if we want to add that in, it was not part of anything that we talked about. So I'm not going to go out and do any of that until we kind of come to a consensus whether we want to do that. But that would be something that would really be needed if we do have a COOP plan where we said the courts could relocate down into here and we have 2 rooms that are available, in this building. This building is better. EOC room over at the jail could suffice at one, but they're going to have trouble bringing their staff in. Because it's already pretty much crowded in the jail right now. There's no available offices and there's nobody who can just plop away and relocate like we can here. So if we want to continue, then we would have to add up all these figures to say, well, this is how much that we're going to do. Kind of like, remember, Steve, the couple meetings before, you said, well, we'll approve it as long as the council says that they can find a place to do it. I want to get on the agenda for the council and bring this up, but I want to see what you guys think as far as, do you think this is a worthwhile thing to add the extra camera and display down into room 125? You maybe even want to think about it. I mean, we got some time before the next council meeting. But, you might want to think about that this is a real scenario, especially with those buildings. We have generator and stuff here. We will have. Those buildings don't have all that kind of equipment. And if something goes out with the power or something like that, and if it's extended, then courts wouldn't be able to run. They'd have to reschedule. They'd have to, have that backlog. We will eventually have all that stuff here where we can continue to run, at that point. They can continue to even do Odyssey and stuff like that because our internet would still be up in this particular building because of the generator and the power and all the improvements that we are sticking into this facility. So it's just a matter for me to say, I take my staff and say, you're relocating and we're going to bring them over here. Let's say if something major happened, a fire or something like that, we could relocate the courts into this building and it would be a short ways away from the current buildings to come over into here. And it's almost ideal down the first floor because the judges could enter at one end of the building, the public could enter through door 4 and go down through there. We're developing a hallway between those rooms downstairs and the room 125. So the security of the judge would be intact, to be able to come in. The only thing I can see is a security issue at that point would be windows, because that first floor, the windows are right there. We may have to take that up at another time to figure out, some sort of bulletproof glass or something put into there. But I figured while we were this close and we're ready to have a training room, this would help with that training, to have that for the person presenting, to have a camera both ways on them. And it would also benefit for the courts as well while we're doing this. And they would be coming in to do some work. We could see how quickly they could come in with the camera, with a display, and do the work in getting it in.
So you're looking at our blessing to move ahead with the additional camera down there, the wireless networking, the new entry door, fire door, and construction work, and also to complete the generator project. And then,
through phase 3 of that.
Which over and above the 249,000 would take us.
No, this isn't part of the 249.
So
This is about another 100,000 on top of the WebEx
It's going to get close to that because this right in here, the 55,000, we're already committed on that construction. Some of it is in there. I got a few more things that are additions from when we had that particular thing come in there. So this is just WebEx, not the generator. This is what this is. So we've already committed to room construction because the only thing left on WebEx is the EOC room over at the jail right now. And so we haven't received the invoices yet from CDTS for that implementation over at the EOC room. We have had construction done, and these are the totals up to the point when I did this for the council 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or something like that, when we had our meeting there.
What's your thoughts?
If you all
Gentlemen.
approve this, you can do it like you did previously with whatever project that, I think was the generator project. You can approve it and let council decide where to pay it from, whether it be an additional in ARPA or whether it be 1138 or 1140 or whatever the case may be. Your approval would then send it to them to decide where that payment would come from, because I think Mike's on the agenda for next week for council.
Yes, that's more or less what we're looking at. I mean, we're coming down to the tail end on that. CBTS has been very close in what they quoted and what the expenditures are from. I think if you look at the spreadsheet, and I think I mentioned in there, they're like $134 difference between the quote, but that didn't include the EOC room. That's a major expense.
I just have to keep all this straight in my head, and sometimes it's hard. We have taken the generator project, and that project is where the additional 249,000 of ARPA was approved.
Yes.
So you're looking to basically do the similar type of compilation for the WebEx project where they've already approved part. You want to go to council to get the rest of the funding for the WebEx project approved to finish it up.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're talking about here. So this has nothing to do with the 249,000 that council approved last meeting or 2 meetings
In
ago.
fact, this is why I created this document, because
Yeah,
it is so
appreciate it.
confusing. And there's been a number of things that have been improved, like the generator. If you look in the front page, and then we got WebEx, and then we got the Geneva IT.
Yeah.
That's separate. That's its own thing. We had the heating, cooling. It's almost finished. We have yet to start on the roof.
Yeah.
And then we got coming up number 6, which I was gonna add that to my talk today. Number 6 was dealing with, we're gonna have to get the servers and the storage and the switch equipment updated in this building, because we're running into a deadline coming up. Next February, there is no more firmware or software updates to that hardware that we got down that room. All Microsoft has to do is to make something that we need to put in place, and that hardware is not able to do it. And if you say, well, that's not right, Mike, that can never happen. Yes, it can. It can definitely break the stuff that we got if our hardware is not capable. With the firmware enhancements that have to go in, it can literally make it so it breaks it. And, in Windows terminology, you go to reboot it and it blue screens, and it blue screens, and it blue screens, and there's no way around it unless you get some sort of an update with firmware. If they're not writing the firmware for that equipment, there's nothing I can do. I mean, I don't
Before
sit
we
there-
go on to that, let's kind of take some action on this first thought process here.
WebEx project.
Let's talk about the WebEx project and how you gentlemen feel about moving ahead with that. So,
And I'm okay if you want time to think about it. And if you say we want to table for a week to think about it. And
I say we table for a week to think about
Yeah, and you
it.
can come up and you can talk to me
Right.
if you want, just like what you said. I'm fine with that. That's why, I'm still gonna want to present it to council next week. But, I think you got, just like we did the last time with the generator, I think it's both groups have to kind of work together and think about what it is that
What do
they
you
want
think,
to do.
Steve? Table for a week?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but basically what you will do with council, you've already got approved 315,000. You think, not including the 25,000, we're at 380,000 and change. So you'll need to get that additional money approved. And then if we add the 25,000 to it, that bumps us up to 405 as far as on that WebEx project. You think that could wrap that up?
Pretty close, yeah.
The 315 plus additional, whatever is that, 90 or whatever that is.
Pretty close.
So you think
Some of
that's
the
what we're
loose ends
short?
that I got that I'm gonna present today, some of the loose ends, I'm gonna take from Fund 1138.
Okay.
You know, from over there. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm.
I'm fine to noodle that extra 25,000 around. I think I'm good with the 380, 261, because I don't know that we have a choice on that. The extra 25,000 seems to be kind of where the question mark is left.
Yeah.
I think the explanation that Mike gave for that was
Yeah, I don't think about those things, but somebody has to. So judges, I'm sure, think about those things.
Yeah, and part of what I didn't understand in that room, why the initial camera was pointed facing back at the classroom when we were gonna use that to broadcast presentations, and it wasn't pointed at the presenter. So now, with that, then we have to add a second camera, since the initial camera is pointed like back towards the students. Or
Yeah,
the-
you could flip
So-
it around, you know,
So-
and then you could flip the room around, keeping the camera back into there, which is entirely possible. But it would benefit for training to have a camera at both ends, but it's still doable, Stan, with just the
Yeah.
one. But then it comes up to the courts where it's almost necessary that they have camera from both sides with people talking, with the jury that's gonna be in there, and where everything else that's
Yeah.
That's where it's coming in. And if we want to do that, because I was willing to just say, we won't do it. And I'll try and change the direction of the classroom so that the presenter's actually in this way and the camera's in the back, you know. We still have to relocate the camera above the screen because in my opinion, it was improperly put up. That was a miscommunication between Bob and I and the people from CBTS, because when I walked into there and I looked at it, they had it up, I said, me being a teacher for 20 years, I said, that's not gonna work when all you're gonna see is from the waist down of the presenter, you know, with it below the screen that has to be moved up. So they're gonna move it up. That's not an issue, but I could have flipped it around. The key being, though, is with the COOP plan for the courts. If we had something like that, and we will be a prime target if something happened with one of those two buildings or both, they could come over here because now we're gonna have a whole building generator, all the UPS needs and everything else that we'd have to make that courts work. And
Well, I
and right
guess in
now,
my
they
mind,
don't even have a generator in those buildings.
If
so we
that
have a
camera
power
or
issue
classroom
now.
could be flipped around to where it showed the presenter, then if we ever needed another camera, you know, maybe we could do that. But I mean, to spend 25,000 to have a camera in each room, it's up to you guys, whatever. So,
Yeah, it really comes down to the courts for the most
So you're
part.
going to council next week for the
Yeah.
405?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask them about, you know, about some of this stuff and
Okay.
see what we're gonna do. But, I mean, I gotta do that because they're doing EOC room and I'm gonna get an invoice.
Yeah.
And now we're not gonna have enough money in that fund to do it, so we gotta at least get that part done.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'd come in and talk about that plus some various other things as well. And just to get you thinking about it. How important is it for us to have another location for the courts? I mean, I've been here for 5 years and I have a request to move one once. in
well,
5 years.
yeah, let's think about that till next week. If you've got other invoices that we need to approve, maybe we can address those.
Yeah, I do.
So.
These are all gonna come from 1138. And the line item is 42500.000.0000. And there's 4 of them here, and they're just some finish up stuff. One of them is in the power room to anchor the racks that we already got in place. So we can put the UPS into there. That's one of them. And as you see them, you want me to go over the figure with that? Because I can do that.
Yeah, maybe just
Maybe I can just explain it while I'm up in
Yeah.
here. Let me go from that with the racks that we got. Power rack anchoring. So we got 6 racks down there right now. They need to be bored into we need to have fasteners bored into the floor, and the racks need to be leveled and anchored down. So it's $3,423, $3,423.
Do we want to take them
I'll
individually?
make a motion to approve that. Michael, I'll get all confused if he goes through all 4 of them, then you want a motion. Is
Okay.
that okay to take them one at a time?
Well, you can take them one at a time or all together, whatever you want to do.
One at a time.
Let's do one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay.
Are these all wired?
Yes, they are all wired. We have some cabling that needs to be done into room 124. And that's the power room. So we need to get some network cabling done into there and some other data type stuff for what we anticipate for the UPSs and so on, so that we can monitor and know those things are going to be there. $3,660 for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said 660, right?
3660.
3660.
Okay, good. I got it right. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, and then we got some cabling that has to be done back into the this will be back into the room for the power, not the power room, but in room 125 where the new person's going to be located. And possibly if we want to do the camera and the display on the back wall of that, which, you know, I just got a quote for it. And that one is $4,100. So for the new employee, there's a back room for their office and for the display and so on. If we can.
I assume if we decide not to do that
We can
on the back wall,
we can eliminate that.
of course, you may decide you want to move that, even if we don't buy the new equipment, you may need to move that to the back wall. And
We would need to have it there.
So that's just a quote.
Yeah, these are all quotes.
I'd say we table that one.
Okay.
Until we decide.
Well, we got the new employee in because it's not 4,100 for this, for instance, a new employee that I'm going to hire shortly in their office, which sits on the back side of that room. We got to get network
So they
cabling.
didn't separate that.
Oh, they didn't separate it.
No.
Oh, so this is just the 4,100 to get that wiring in that room?
Yeah, because they're like, when you're running them, one runs over top of the other one, so they drop it into the one wall and they go farther back to get to that new office. that's going in.
If we decide not to spend this 25,000, though, we'll probably need that cabling anyway, because they'll need to relocate that monitor and camera back to the
I
other
understand
wall.
what you're saying.
Yeah, it's along the pathway from that room that's coming across the hallway, and they're running cables down into that. And so there's several cables going into that office area because they're going to be doing IT work, bringing in PCs and so on, and maybe helping out users into there as well as this other room.
I'll make a
So,
motion to pay that then.
okay.
I misunderstood what you were saying on that.
Yeah.
Mike.
Well, I'm trying to give you everything, and
Oh, that's right.
I know it's tough when you're not down there actually looking at it. That could be something there. And then when we get ready to do the new servers into that room, we now don't have enough fiber between upstairs and going downstairs. And so I want to try and get a 24 strand fiber. And that one is $7,900. That, these are all coming from 1138. Because that's additions to the building, I guess. It fits really nicely.
It was 1138, the fund that council zeroed out, so you have to go to.
That was 1140.
Okay, good deal.
I got currently in that fund, if you look today, there's just under 200,000 left.
1138.
But we've committed several things with it, not including today, but if you include today's plus the purchasing of new UPS and some other things along with that. And I did take out of that fund already, and we've already paid the bill for the relocation of the fire suppression into the other room. That's already done. So if we take all that, I'm still at $154,000, almost $155,000 left into there. Now, what I was going to do with that, so you kind of got my plan from 1138, is when we do go through, and let's say that we try and get the new equipment for the servers purchased in September, this is going to be ideal for us. Because at least with HP, that's their end of the year. And they're trying to get to the point where they're saying, hey, we got to report to the stockholders and everything else on how so they want to ramp up sales. So they will drastically, big time, cut back on the cost of their equipment. It's like unbelievable amounts of cost cutting. But I got to get that done about in September. And so if we do it then if we do it on a 5-year payback, kind of like a lease, it's a lease with $1 buyout at the end of the lease is what it would be. I'm trying to keep enough in 1138 to make the first year payment. And then we can make the payment thereafter at 1138. I can just budget it into 1138 to make that payment over 5 years. At the end of 5 years, it's $1 from us. They don't even request it. It's essentially our equipment then to do what we want. And by then, we would be ready to say it's time to go into new equipment again and to get that stuff updated. So that's kind of the plan. I know with you guys, that's always big. What's your plan and what you're anticipating to do with it? And that's kind of what it is. When I talked to the people from HP, they said, everybody's doing it just like you. They're getting their equipment, they're putting it under a 5-year lease, they're paying with 5 annual payments of the same thing. And if you can plan it right, just like I do with McAfee and Microsoft, I get when they're at their year end.
At the end of 5 years, what's that equipment worth?
I don't know.
Nothing.
Might be outdated.
Well, it seems like ours is pretty much.
You need a boat anchor?
Yeah, ours is pretty much outdated from a standpoint that it would have been worth something more. But see, they do it on purpose. They quit writing the firm.
Stop supporting.
And so then it becomes worthless to people at that point or people that want to take a chance. So these are the 4 things. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to approve the quotes.
Okay.
They have yet to do it. I'd rather do it that way than just come down and say, hey, we've got it done. Did you guys know about it?
I appreciate that.
I'd rather you know about it
I
ahead of
prefer
time
that.
before I prefer that, you get the quotes approved.
Okay.
This one, Tony, this is from Microsoft. We negotiated this one. It's now done. That is the invoice. Microsoft came up to be 74,000 some odd dollars. I had to do a true up of $980 on that because we've added new people and some more devices and
This
stuff
is
like
for
that.
licensing.
Yeah.
Do you guys need to see this, or I can just take it up and we can pay it as an invoice?
And I got a line item.
If you want-
I got a line item in there. It's already budgeted I put 100,000 because you never know with Microsoft. So we're at 75.
Good.
So we're.
Well, I
well under-
appreciate you staying on top of that. I know how hard that licensing is to manage and we don't want to be flying by the seat of our pants there.
Yeah, yeah. And especially with them, all it takes is someone to report us. I've been through that in another life and.
We want to do
those
the
are
right
not
thing.
fun. Yeah, those are not fun. So
All right.
I think that's it. And you know what my plan is with the council for the next week. You know what my plan is for the servers and so on and how to keep that going. If we don't make September, that purchase, you can expect to pay 50% more on this hardware. So it's down almost that much.
Isn't that crazy?
And we're doing something, we gotta get the switches updated. If it was just this storage and the servers, it would be much less, but switching is so expensive right now. Okay, so.
Good.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion on that.
Okay.
Second.
I heard.
Okay.
Can I have that one? That you use.
Copy of it.
Yeah, you make a copy.
You just gotta put it into, Lowen.record. Send it to us that way.
Yeah.
Then that's fine.
Okay.
I'm just gonna do it for you, but if you
Follow
wanna do
Steve
it,
pretty quick.
I'll get
right
it.
ahead.
Yeah, I get it.
I'll enter it when I see it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's about it.
Yeah, and I gotta get some other.
This is
The hell with it. It's 50%.
9 minute and
You
48
got something to
seconds.
save,
No.
if you get it in time. If you don't save it, you gotta pay more.
Well, I want to,
It depends on how they're looking at
this
how much they
next,
sold.
month.
It can really drop.
Yeah, let's let Mark and
Hey,
Steve
that
get
coupon,
back.
that C-O-U-P,
I'm
or
gonna go
coup.
hit the rest of the.
Coop, okay. C-O-O-P, what's that stand for?
Cooperative.
Yeah, so it's something where people have a backup plan.
Miller had the idea.
Everybody's going to the rich.
Steve, all I need is yes.
Coop, I didn't know what that was.
Oh, that's a good camera. You're gonna put me under the bus and then stomp on me.
Okay.
Guess I'll wait till they all get up here. How are you?
Good. Yourself?
Good.
Keep you
Came to
busy.
grandma again.
You
We have
became a
a,
grandma again.
we have a 6-week-old granddaughter now. First granddaughter. I have 4 boys and a girl and
I'll have my second great granddaughter in December, so.
okay.
So I'm one generation ahead of you.
Is being a great grandfather as great as being a grandfather?
You know what? My grandkids all grew up, so it's kind of nice to have these little
You
ones
can't
come
have
out.
kids that are grandkids. Really?
Hey, Mary, what's your last name again?
Beery, B-E-E-R-Y.
And you're what office? What do you?
Assessor.
The assessor.
Did Stan pass the helm to you or you, or are we just all on a break here?
Stan called a restroom.
Okay.
I was gonna tell you, my mom used to tell me that you're not old until you're the mother of a grandfather. Then you're old. If you're the mother of a grandfather, then you're old.
Okay, well, I'm not old yet.
Yeah, so you've got 2 years to go.
I'm not old yet. You're only as old as you feel, and I don't feel, yeah. I still feel 25.
Tony, I'm
Don't start
Tony, I'm on
yawning
page
in front of
14.
here. I
Pardon?
said, don't start yawning.
Oh,
in
I
front
know
of
it. I'm been sitting in this chair since 8:30 this morning. I'm ready
Wow,
to get out.
me. Are
really?
they more comfortable than the other ones?
You think?
This chair's higher.
I'm not very.
Black ones are nice.
This,
I never liked the other ones because if I would put it down so my feet would touch the ground, I'd be like this.
Mark and I
But
both.
if I put it up, my feet are dangling and they're falling asleep before I'm done, and it's like, okay, take me a little bit to get up and walk. So,
all right.
Mary, what'd you have for us?
okay, and I know that there has been some discussions held, but I just kind of wanted to share with you guys the importance of getting somebody to do these plat books. Right now, and I just checked with the auditor's office this morning, the splits date back to January of 23. So we are, today is August the 1st. And my office, the sales disclosures, which I'm not sure if you guys know what the sales disclosures are, but they accompany the deeds. And basically, since we're a market value state, the sales disclosure will say, you know, who the seller was, who the buyer was, what the purchase price was, whether or not they're going to live there. You know, it gives an overview of what the property is going to be used for. And my office is required within 45 days, these sales disclosures have to be verified and put into the system. So as you can see, we're dated back to January of 23, so we're already like really far behind. I want to let you guys know that basically my office is the beginning and ending of the process, because if you have no assessment, you have no taxation. And if these are not done, you're not going to have any taxation for the following year. I mean, that's not trying to sound threatening, but that's just the way it is. Sorry, I kind of have my bulletin points here. The other thing that I kind of wanted to point out is, okay, so in a given year, several things can happen to just one parcel or two parcels, okay? So I'll pick on Steve. You know, let's say Steve decides that he's going to split his 20 acres and he's going to create a subdivision and they're all going to be an acre, okay? So he does all that. Basically, that part's done, which our office then has to split all that up and it all has to be given assessments, so forth and so on. Well, then Steve, you know, is selling these off. Well, we don't have his split yet, but it already shows that you bought a lot, and you bought a lot. We cannot do you, and you because we don't have him. So that not only puts us behind with the splits, now we're behind in the straight transfers because it's, you know, trickle down effect. So that right there, you know, kind of gives you another why we are going to be behind, I mean, why we're behind. The other thing is after splits are done, then I have to do the soils. So, you know, whether it's flooding or whether it's woods, I mean, there's so many different types of soils that I'm not even going to go there. So the other way it affects is typically in this given situation that I'm just talking about with the subdivision. Steve's goal is because people are going to put homes on those different lots, well, which is new construction, okay? So we cannot pick up these homes for new construction without, here again, the trickle down effect, but we also hire a company who comes in and they do the new construction for us, which we're not the only county that they do work for. There's other counties that they do work for. So, you know, they try to, you know, make that flow evenly, you know, so we're kind of affecting them as well. And when this process happens and then there's new construction, so we're, you know, find out that you have put up a house, we have to put a memo out there so they can pick all this stuff up. And that's how we interact with, it's called vision now instead of appraisal research. I think I kind of already touched on it. Like if, here again, he creates a subdivision. I don't know how much you guys know about parcel numbers, but he creates a subdivision. The state has given us what the format or the mask is supposed to be for the parcel numbers. So that therefore, if you understand the parcel numbers, you could literally go back with that parcel number knowing that Steve's the one that started it, okay? So as time goes on, as he splits it, that parcel number changes and lots are created, which creates, you know, further down the line on the parcel numbers. But once he creates a subdivision, his parcel numbers retire, okay? Because now we've got 20 new parcel numbers. And I guess where I'm going with that is it makes it difficult for us to trace back because we're getting the end of the story before we're ever getting the beginning of the story. You know what I'm saying? And so then that makes us more time to try to figure all this out. And then we're just behind. The other thing I wanted to put
So the problem is Steve.
Yes. I told you if you just say yes, we're good. I always have to pick on somebody. Okay, that's just me. Okay, and then the other thing is beginning June 10th of every year, I have to submit a report to the DLGF, which is the Department of Local Government Finance. Okay, in this report, I have to go through and I have to let them know how many ag parcels were reviewed, how many commercial industry we've reviewed, how many residential's been reviewed. I have to report this. Well,
this isn't, we've already done 2 reports now, and we're not even a third of the way done. These have to be done by December 31st of this year. We're not even a third of the way done. So, and in essence, something out of my control is making me behind. And I, don't like those odds because, it's going to come down to where it's going to be my fault or our fault that this isn't being done, which is not a true story unless everybody knows how all this works. One of the other things that, we'll have people that'll call in, they'll ask for information. If we can't give them the information, I personally don't like that makes my office look bad. That makes my staff look bad, and that's not fair to us as well. Because if it would have been done timely, we would be where we're supposed to be. I have been told that there is somebody who, whenever they get a chance, that they can work on it. But we're past the whenever you get a chance. We need somebody in here. And I'm at the point where, we need somebody multiple days a week, if not for weeks on end for a while till we get caught up. Because, my staff, I can't ask them come December 1st, you guys are basically going to have to live here because we got to get all this work done.
Have you got somebody we can, it's not because we don't want to fill that
Well,
position, it's because we can't find anybody to fill that position.
I understand that. That's what I've been told. But what kind of bothers me to begin with is I wasn't even aware, we were not made aware that nobody was doing this. We were not made aware. And then all of a sudden, one of the girls in my office said she went over to try to find some stuff out, and it was, oh, we don't have anybody doing the books. And it's like, oh, shoot. And so we're getting straight transfers, but yet, and I don't even know how they're doing that. We're getting straight transfers, but yet the subdivision hasn't been created. I don't have anybody. I've talked to Tony. I don't have anybody. But I'm at the point where you're going to have to hire a surveyor that's Brett Miller, I don't know who, and pay somebody probably a large amount of money to come in here and do this. Because if you don't, and here again, this isn't a threat, but if you don't, you're not going to have any taxation. That's just kind of where we're at. So I just wanted you guys to understand.
Do you have anybody in mind?
No, that's what I just told him. I don't. I mentioned one to Tony that I know he helps. I'm not giving any names or anything, and I'm not, I don't know if it's something he would do, if it's something he'd feel comfortable, because he's not a surveyor. He's just helping somebody. I know he's a retired gentleman, but I don't know if he'd be willing to do it. But we've got to get somebody in here.
So I appreciate you coming in and helping me understand how, I don't understand how all that works together.
Right.
What that missing link, the stress that's causing you. So
Right.
I maybe we just need to double down on that effort, I guess. I don't know.
I just really want to stress that we really need somebody in here to do these, because we are a sinking ship right now. And I hate to say that, but we are.
Okay.
Because without it, we're not going anywhere. Which here again, in the future, we're going to be in a bad way next year when taxation comes around. So anyway, well, thank you for listening.
Thanks, Mary.
Appreciate it.
Is this called a technician, Mary? It's a type of technician, right? That's what it's called?
I think that's what it's called.
That's what it was for many years. Okay, that's what.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that what we've got as non-for?
What,
All right. One of the things that I,
Smith did that.
Mark, are you ready for,
We're
us
going
to-
to forward Stephen Lex.
Yeah, and I can kind of maybe give you,
if you'd like to preface that?
yeah,
And,
give you kind of an update. So,
yes.
As you know, we've had considerable turnover in the administration and management of Golden Meadows home over the last several years. And our county HR officer has been assisting quite a lot in the administration of the home now for several months. Our HR officer has been working with administration and professionals at the hospital to assess the current facility and the needs of the residents for ongoing care. And a decision concerning the continuation or the continuing operation of the county home is a matter that involves both the commissioners and the council. If the commissioners believe that continuing to provide housing and care to the residents at the current location is no longer viable, then they can make a recommendation to the council that they approve the commissioners to begin a process for finding alternatives for more appropriate housing and care for the residents. I mean, obviously that's difficult topic of discussion. You know, we've had an executive session with some of the administrators and the individuals that have looked at healthcare needs of the residents, in particular, some specific healthcare related needs. So that stuff is obviously confidential. But anyway, I thought, you know, as commissioners, at least you can maybe make, you know, a press release or at least have an announcement here concerning the process and kind of what you're looking at as far as Golden Meadows and maybe the future of that facility. I mean, obviously, it's been around many, many years. And I don't know, Stan, you can, maybe I'll just have you cover that, but I can give this to the press and then we can discuss it.
Yeah, in consultation with Mark, he's prepared a letter that kind of explains our position at this time. The Board of Commissioners have undertaken a review of the county's Golden Meadows home in an effort to evaluate the residents' needs and current living facilities and care being provided by the county for the residents. Consultants and professionals with the Adams Memorial Hospital have assisted in gathering information and reviewing the facilities and resident needs and level of care. At the present time, there are 20 residents who live in the facility, and for them, it is their home. The land was purchased by the county in 1875, and the current structure was built in 1901. Historically, there were many more individuals who called Golden Meadows their home, and over time, the staff and the residents have taken great pride in making it a home and caring for the facility and each other. The facility is very large, and health and daily needs of the residents have transitioned such that it is more of an assisted living facility by current care standards, requiring a level of care in many instances that is beyond what the county can or should provide in today's healthcare and living assistance environment. The commissioners feel a great responsibility that the residents be provided with a facility and level of care that enables them to live their best life. As we review the future and the needs of the residents, the county must weigh whether the age and size of the facility, together with necessary staffing, resident care, and maintenance, create an environment that makes the current facility no longer a best life option for the residents who call it home. These are difficult decisions to consider, but it is incumbent upon the commissioners and council to review these questions and make the best decision for the future of the residents and the county's ability to reasonably meet their needs. So I appreciate Mark in preparing this release for us. You know, I think it speaks well of the assistance we've got from the hospital. This speaks well of our priority to make sure that our residents get the best quality of life that they can have. So, but we take this very seriously as we move ahead. So, gentlemen, do you have comments, thoughts?
I really don't
Okay.
at this time.
All right.
Dan, are there 3 homes in the county, in the state like this now?
There's 8.
8, only 8 left in the whole
Out of
state.
92.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not very many.
Yeah, and I think, you know, some of the historical records I saw at one point in time, there were 80 rooms. I don't think they're not utilizing 80 rooms, but there were 80 rooms.
Here at our place?
Yeah.
80? I didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, there's you know, the county homes initially were primarily for, the indigent. And, there was no other alternatives for them. And so county homes were created all over the state. And, we're talking back in the late 1800s. And, this facility, there was actually a facility before the 1901 facility. And just as from one of our, I think this came from our library, our historical museum documents. Says originally it was 270 acres. Back then, the commissioners appointed a county home administrator and was responsible to provide quarters for the administrator and their family.
Really?
And so the administrator actually lived at the home, and it was a working farm. And so, it produced crops, provided for their own needs. But over time, like anything else, things have changed, and the level of care that is needed for many, not all, but a lot of the residents starts to look a lot more like actual health care than just a living arrangement. And then that brings in the consideration, do you have appropriate nursing, and then dispensing of medications, prescriptions, and then getting them proper medical care, as well as, in many cases, mental health care and programs. And so that's changed. But Golden Meadows and the staff have done an unbelievable job over the years.
How big is staff out there? How many work out there now? How many people work out there? Any idea?
About 22, I think. isn't it?
22? Okay.
So, it's hard to.
Well, a big consideration for us was when we had lost our administrator out there, and soon afterwards we lost 2 other administrative staff. And we asked the hospital to come in and help us through the transition to both administer the business side and the clinical side. And they have been very helpful in both ways. And as they assessed our residents and found that maybe there were some ways that we could improve their life, their quality of life. So that's kind of what we're looking at now, is the assessments from other professionals and how to best provide for those residents, even if it means relocating those residents to a different facility. But they all have special needs. Some have economic needs, some have physical needs, some have mental health needs. And so, it's a process of finding appropriate care and places for them to live.
And, most other counties have had to, look at this years ago. But it's just one of those things. It's time to take a look at seriously and see if it makes sense.
Yeah. So, I don't know if there's any questions on that or any other discussion on that. We're not necessarily looking to take any specific action at this time. But I do think it will, bear well for all of us to continue the discussion.
And I think as commissioners, I mean, you've got a council meeting, next week, and we'll make sure, Tony, we get that on the agenda to discuss, Golden Meadows. But, the commissioners, I think, could possibly make a recommendation to the council that they approve the commissioners at least, looking at the process and evaluating alternatives, for appropriate housing and care for the residents. You could at least let them know that you'd like for them to approve the commissioners to take whatever action that you think is appropriate. But that's up to you.
Yeah, and that's up to you gentlemen too. If we want to take any official action, I would certainly accept that too. But, we have had consultation with professionals from the hospital and from Mark and from clinical advisors, business advisors. So if it's anything
But in fairness, to the residents and the employees out there, you got to let them know that this is a possibility and that you're looking at it, and that way everybody's prepared. And I think that's certainly needs to be discussed. But
otherwise, we will plan on presenting to council next week.
Yeah.
On some of the things that we've looked at and discussed, and some of the.
It will take some time. You need to decide, what the alternatives are, and maybe the alternative is you continue to operate it the way that it is, for a few more years. But I think, based upon, the age of the structure and the level of care that many of them need and what the county can reasonably provide, that you've got to be looking at these options. So, and what's best for them.
Mark, on a day-by-day basis, is there a hospital person out there overseeing it right now, daily? I mean, who's overlooking?
We've got some help from the.
It's AMH, okay.
But Shannon's also working on it.
Okay.
I know, Shannon, you want to elaborate on that, or?
No, I've just been kind of helping them fill in and answer some of the day-to-day questions, trying to keep them above water until we have a more permanent solution in place.
Okay.
And Commissioner Bailey's been stepping in out there
Really?
10 hours a week or so, just helping out there until we decide what we're going to do.
Yeah, it has absolutely been a community effort.
Yeah.
And everybody that's been involved has kind of wrapped their arms around it, and I think we're all very grateful for that.
Do you have a timetable set as to how long you're going to look for a decision one way or the other?
Not a specific timetable, I don't think, on a decision, but it obviously is something that needs to be addressed, I think, here in the next month. At least.
Yeah, that's one of the things when we asked the hospital to come in, they came in with, a nurse with many, many, many years of experience in managing residential care. They came in with administrative experience to look at residence financing, business financing. So they've been invaluable, and they've been coordinating, with Steve and Shannon. And I think for Shannon to say that she's been helping a little bit out there is one of the biggest understatements of the year.
Yeah.
So she's been a strong liaison between there and us, and she's also been a strong liaison for the residents and other staff in the absence of administrators. So, yeah, that's, and then Steve with his banking background has been a strong advocate for the residents out there also. So
but you're saying that you'd like to possibly make a decision within a month.
We're gonna make a presentation to council, and I think kind of in coordination with council, we'll kind of make sure that they're up to speed on some of the recommendations that have come back from the hospital. And because after evaluating for over a month, the hospital, you know, we have met with them, and they do have some recommendations for us. So, you know, we'll present those to council next week and kind of work together on a plan to move forward. So, yeah. But it's like everybody has pulled together to try and figure out the best way forward to both currently manage the situation and to create a plan going forward.
Yeah, I think it comes down to a decision where either you're gonna have to recruit and hire another administrator and then another, chief nurse and appropriate staff, and then continue operating the way that we've operated, or you're gonna look at other alternatives, and which may involve, whether that involves constructing a new facility or having residents assisting them find other housing alternatives. That process will take time. It's not gonna be, done and out. It will take some time. And I think the county's commissioners, I know for certain, are committed to make sure that, that number one priority is making sure that they've got the care that they need to have and that they've got the facility that they need to have, and whatever time it takes to do that, that's what needs to be done.
I can say as commissioners, our biggest concern is the residents that live out there. They're not getting the quality of care today that they need to have. And as commissioners, it is our responsibility to make sure that they get the quality of care that they deserve.
And I think in some instances, it just comes down to the way healthcare, residential care is delivered is a lot different than it was 100 years ago. And, the county has to ask, the question, is the county really in the business of providing those types of healthcare related services in a residential environment? Or are there other residential environments that already do that and do it a lot better and do provide what they need? And so I think those are the considerations. And obviously, a lot of other counties have made that decision a long time ago.
Okay, any other questions from anybody or comments? Otherwise, we'll move ahead with that. Mark, do you have anything else for us?
I don't think so.
Clayton, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, very good.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much.